Good morning. This is Bobby Dupre with the Bobby Dupre Show, presented to you each Thursday morning at 7 a.m. and repeats itself on Friday morning at 7 a.m. and at 2 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. And I am back alive this week. Thanks for taking over last week. I got to watch most of the program last week, and you did a great job. And I want to thank our staff here, our technician, Mr. Mark and Matt.
To hook you up
and
on the
Steve,
phones and have you live?
That's correct. It took a handful of people to handle it, but I think it came out good, and just don't want to miss the program totally. I don't want to hand it over to you yet. I'm not ready to hand it over to you.
You like that man that played baseball at that position before Lou Gehrig. You know that the day you're going to walk away, Lou Gehrig's going to take over. And
That's right. And you do a good job. And I try to mention that to our fans, because it's our
I think you do a good job, too. You know.
Yeah, we have fun at it. And we try to bring you a lot of good things. And, of course, we bring you some deaths. And I guess the first thing I want to start on is the death of my brother, John Dupre, Sr., age 87. And he's not only my brother, but he was my parent. And back in those days, parents were really... we called each other, I called them parents. We took it seriously. Today, I do something for my godchild. Every month, I have a little something for Austin, your daughter, Sabrina's daughter. And I try to do a few things like that. I did the same thing for Janice and Skeeter's daughter, Elise. Did something for her. Through her college, and she's doing quite well, I might add. And so I try to remember to be a parent, and I failed in a few instances. And when I see them, it kind of hurts me, but life goes on. My brother John was an educator, as I guess what most people think of him was as an educator. Started out with FFA, and at the wake Sunday and at the funeral services on Monday, there were a number of some students who quite ageable today.
Correct. And
they were there, and they had their own little stories. There was one person there, the family name starts with a C. And I apologize, but he told a story to me in the coffee room, the break room, that John had tried to get him to attend the Army military, West Point. And John says, you deserve that opportunity, and I'll work hard, and we'll get others in the community to work hard. And he says he wanted to be an engineer, and while engineering is available at West Point, Willie Gottschalk finished in environmental engineering, if I recall, something with that similar name. And he says, but the only thing is they're really pushing for you to become an officer.
Correct.
And you have to give so many years back. It's a free education, but you have to commitment. You have to make a commitment, 4 to 6 years, whatever that number might be. And, but he says, you know, I never forgot that he thought enough, your brother John thought enough of me to make that offer to me. And I remember a teacher doing the same for me, telling me I was going to make A's and a few B's. And my reply to her during the little recess was that, well, I'm making C's and B's. And she says, I'll fail you if you don't make A's and B's. And Mary Duchamp, she's still alive. She was about 3 rooms from John over at Cornerstone Nursing Home. And I want to thank those people. They did a beautiful job taking care of my brother. And John's family is very thankful. And in fact, our good friend Bo Williford and his son Christian, who works there, Christian had gotten real close to John, and he and Bo had gone to see John. He kept telling him, I guess, about them, and of course, Bo knows me well enough to, I guess, feel like he part of the group, part of the family. And, you know, the stories go on, and I make those because I think if we think back, somebody touched our button somewheres. And Mary Duchamp told me I could do better, and I did better after that. And I did make A's. Believe it or not, I did make A's and a few B's. And those people in teaching can do so much for students.
And your brother started as an ag teacher.
That's right. Then he became the principal.
And all at Port Barre.
At Port Barre. Then he became a supervisor for the San Antonio Parish School Board. And then later he became superintendent of schools.
From the late 60s to the early 80s when he was the superintendent.
When he was superintendent.
So he went from segregation all the way into the computer age.
Yep.
The area he covered probably the most volatile time in our entire school board.
Integration. Jack Burson and Martin Roy visited with us and talked about a few of the days that were tough. They were really, really tough.
Some people were very much against it. And
I think it was Jack that mentioned John was the last superintendent to serve a lengthy term.
Oh, yeah?
And I had never thought about that way.
Like 13 years, I guess, or so?
12, 13 years. And I want to thank the family for doing such a good job of taking care of Cody and I's brother. You know, you don't see that every time. No. John and Normally had two sons that really did well financially. And they shared that with John and Normally and are still sharing it today. That gives me the opportunity to thank Paul and Gail Celestine from Abbeville, who came in and just became part of our family. Wow. He was a pallbearer. Paul was a pallbearer. And they're going to be part of our family, by the way. You're not going to get away from us, Paul and Gail. You are part of the family. And so many others that did different things to make it. But the kids really, I guess if they ever were not close, they're close today.
Right.
And that's important. They were all there doing what they were able to do financially. Corny and Bernie were able, and they've stepped up to the plate. Mm-hmm. And I know they're going to take care of Mama the same way, and we're taking care of Mama at the end. After John went to the nursing home, they continued having Paul go over practically every day and spend 5-6 hours with him, and Gail went over and helped Normally. So it was a beautiful time of his life in the sense that he saw his family come together for him and for Normally, you know.
Yeah, his illness initially was just primarily the legs.
That's right.
So he was, still the mind was in perfect health, so he had enough time for his family to come together and talk about it.
And see all of this.
Right. But what my big memory of growing up, in Port Barre with them was I was an altar boy. I was very close to Father Centerville, who was a brilliant, brilliant man. And of course, your brother John was one of the readers or lectors over at Sacred Heart Church in Port Barre. And when everyone else had kind of got to that age where they'd wear T-shirts and blue jeans to Mass, your brother still would show up with the jacket, with the tie, perfectly dressed. I mean, he was dressed for the Lord. He was dressed up because he was going to go see God. Carried himself with dignity, and I mean, when you were around him, it was always yes sir, no sir. Plenty of the other parents were like yeah, no when you talk to them, but when you were around him, he was just carried himself with such an air. And I got to hear he and Father Centerville talking politics, talking business, talking that type of thing. So it was a big influence on me learning from them. So.
And then after that, he worked for the division administration for a few years. Not sure just how long myself. I remember when it took place. And Sally Clausen was above him. She was heading up that department at the time, division administration. John went over to the Capitol to testify at a committee hearing. And when he came back, he was just out of breath. And she says, John, something seems wrong. He says, well, it just kind of got me tired walking across. She said, but John, you weren't walking like that just recently. You were going back and forth, and I didn't see this in you. I'm going to go ahead and make an appointment with my cardiologist that I know. And he said, oh, no, don't do that. She said, oh, I'm doing it. And thanks to you, Sally, you got him to the doctor, and the next morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, they were operating, and
because he had blockage.
He had major blockage, quadruple bypass. and he lived a long time. So different people that I'm just thinking of, and there's so many of you out there, and all the beautiful words that you sent by way of the guest book, I think is on the internet. The Daily Advertiser had it, the Daily World had it, and Martin and Castile, want to thank them. They did a beautiful job with the funeral services and the wake and all. I don't know,
And Father Mallet at the cathedral, they did a beautiful, boy. The music was...
Well, I wanted to get... Now, did you know him? Is he about your age, Father Mallet?
We're the exact same age. I kid him that we were on the lecture circuit together. He and I, at Leonville High, he won most of the awards that boys would win, you know, the different awards and you know, things that you get. And I was getting all those things from Port Barry. So when we'd go as, you know, different guys from around the parish, we'd go to get these awards. We almost always were together eating or doing something. His dad, one night I went to get a Coke and I realized I needed another quarter. His dad gave me a quarter.
You still remember that?
I still remember that quarter, you know,
his daddy died about 3 years ago.
Not long ago, that's right.
About 3 years. Now, his daddy was involved with Progressive Tractor?
I'm not sure.
I think so.
Could be.
I want to say that because I mentioned, I spoke with him and a couple of the family members in an office. Right. And I think he told me that.
Well, he and I both graduated together, so he's a public school, so he's as much of a product of John Dupre's leadership of St. Landry Parish Schools as I am. I mean, we both went through the system together at the same time. You know, at least John was, you know, the superintendent for all but maybe our last year, maybe our senior year. So from kindergarten all the way up. I always kid you about John R. Dupre. He said, well, how you know John R. Dupre? I said, every little letter I'd get to bring home to Mama, it was signed at the bottom, John R. Dupre, you know?
Oh, yeah. And, well, John, you did a great job for a lot of... And then I really need to mention the services that he provided for Dupre Supply Company, Bernie and Corney's company. Right. And he came in and just wasn't a daddy on the payroll. He undertook a very important role with the company and got to know the employees very, very well, because he undertook the auditing of the company for certification as an ISO 9000 company.
Right, which is a big
and
deal.
when you have that certification, it's kind of like attorney, medical doctor, whatever. It means that your company has been audited, and that if you buy a product with that company and they promise you in 10 days that product will be at your place of business, it's going to be there. Right. It's just accepted fact. And John did that certification and then came back each year and did the continuing education part of it.
KSLO was here on the other side of 3.
So a lot of those people came and visited with Dupre Supply, because that's recent years. And anyhow, John, you did a great job for a lot of us. I could go on and do the whole program, but then maybe...
and I got dozens of phone calls trying to find out details about the funeral. Everybody was, you know, sending their condolences.
I got a phone call last night, Sean Dejon. Sean's up in Minneapolis, doing quite well, I might add. He's working for an aviation company that sells products for not the jets, the maintenance of planes, and doing quite well. And of course, he played a role in the beginning of Dupre Supply Company. They came up with a novel idea of setting up some trailers with parts that they would need on job locations when they're drilling wells and the completion of the wells. And he did the welding of the insides to hold the shelving and all. So he played a role, and they all were college kids at LSU together, Bernie, Corney, and Sean. So lots of people play different roles in your life. And Sean, thank you very, very much for the call last night. It was very thoughtful of you. And all of you that just sent, I'm not going to try to name all of you.
And our condolences again to everybody else in the family, you know, Mr. Cody and Mr.